to get started, again, my name is Corinne Zudonyi. I am the editor-in-chief of All Things. I do everything. No, I'm just kidding. I've said it so many times. I'm Corinne Zudonyi. I'm the editor-in-chief of Facility Cleaning Decisions Magazine, Contracting Profits Magazine, CleanLink.com. We help put on Clean Buildings Conference and NFM&T as an organization. And I work with this great man on Sanitary Maintenance Magazine, which is for the distribution audience. So we haven't talked about that much here at the show, but that is a very important component to the industry. And I'm joined here today with Keith Schneringer. He is the marketing genius behind BradyPLUS, which is a Jansan distributor. He specializes in sustainability and pretty much everything. So, but I'll let Keith actually share his real title and expertise. So,
excellent. Thank you very much, Corinne. Yes, Senior Director of Marketing for Jansan and Sustainability is the title. I've been in the cleaning industry since 1990. And have worked for, before the time here with BradyPLUS, I was with Envoy Solutions. Before that, I was with Waxy Sanitary Supply. Ultimately, it's all the same company, just keeps on getting acquired and changing names. But yeah, I've definitely seen a lot of changes since 1990 and 2025.
Yeah, that's a lot of years. Also, you've worked with a lot of different end users and seen a lot of change in the industry in terms of innovation. Not necessarily a change per se, but certainly heightened attention given in 2020 when the pandemic hit. And all eyes were focused on infection control, infection prevention, best practices, strategies. During that time, one question that I get asked often is, did sustainability fly out the window in when we needed to focus heavily on infection prevention? What did you see with customers in terms of that?
Yeah, definitely saw some of that where people who had sustainability front of mind just put it all the way to the back of their mind, and they were focused on disinfecting. And I think retrospectively, although the best of intentions, people were wanting to over disinfect. Had customers who are rigging up golf carts and driving down like the middle of hallways and just spewing disinfectant on either side. Had some customers who were hiring drones to fly over their buildings, dump disinfectant on their buildings, and they didn't know what was going on. They just knew they wanted to disinfect. Early on in the pandemic, we published an article saying green cleaning actually is part of the solution here, because if what we mean is we want to clean to protect health, because that's really what people are trying to do. I want people to not get sick. I want to protect health. Therefore, we're cleaning. Green cleaning does that, where you're cleaning in such a way that you are not inadvertently putting people at risk as you are when you're indiscriminately spraying disinfectant.
Yes, of course. We all know what VOCs are, and certainly if a spray is coming right at you, you definitely don't want that either. So I'm so glad to hear that to see when we backed away from that and we stopped disinfecting quite so much. We really started to educate. A lot of the building service contractors, in-house facility managers that I talked to, they didn't necessarily want to disinfect as much as they were. It was an edict coming from their executive team, their customer, that we want this. And despite their efforts to educate that this isn't necessary, they still had to execute it, for fear of losing the job or, the customer. So how would you handle stuff like that?
Without a doubt. And I think that during the time of the pandemic, that came to get a name. We would call it hygiene theater.
Yes.
And so it was the acting like something, like we're doing something, like we're spraying, so this must be effective because there's a lot of spraying and stuff going on. And so kind of similar to like what happened after 9/11, where now you've got security theater where we have, we now have to pack, little bottles.
Little tiny travel bottles
travel
in
bottles
a clear
and,
plastic bag only
that's
this
right, yeah.
big.
And so it's things like, okay, if this, and there was like a reason behind it originally, but at a certain point in time, it's just performance art, and the customers, like you said, they're like, even if they knew this isn't doing anything, their customers saying do that, because if you don't do it, I'm going to bring somebody else in and pay them money to do it also. And but I think that as people became better educated, 'cause I think that's the key, so they can understand what is effective, what's not effective, why are the things happening the way that they're happening, and now that we know more, ideally we'll be able to respond better. We'll see, if there's another pandemic, and maybe it's not for another 100 years, but it seems like we lost some of the lessons that we learned during the 1919 Spanish flu pandemic. We've kind of repeated several of the same mistakes because we forgot collectively about that.
Well, I mean, I don't know about you, but I have learned that the general public has very short-term memory. During the pandemic, how many times did you hear how to actually wash your hands? I thought we all learned this when we were 2 by our parents. I don't know where we went wrong, where we lost track of how to do that. And the hand hygiene in general during that time has now faded. Personal story, my dad, despite my many efforts of educating him, felt during the pandemic he must wash his hands if he touched a single thing. I touched that pen, I better go wash my hands. And I said, well, yes, okay, but you're also in your own home with my mother. It's fine. You're going to be fine. And the use of hand sanitizer was excessive. Now, I'd be like, Dad, you were just outside working in the yard. You should probably go wash your hands. It went from the very two extremes. They just forget. General use in the public, people aren't washing their hands the way they should. Germs are spreading, infections are spreading. So how are you working with your customers to educate them to encourage better hygiene in facilities, and whether that's cleaning and disinfecting, whether it's in the restroom or out here in the common space, or encouraging proper hand washing?
Great question, and I think that it's a systematic approach, and it's something that talked about this morning at one of the sessions where we introduced this concept of cleaning in 4 dimensions. So the first dimension is hand hygiene. 80% of germs that we contract are spread by touch. So washing your hands is extremely important. Sometimes our hands pick things up from surfaces, so cleaning surfaces and disinfecting touch points, that's the second dimension of cleaning for health. The third dimension would be cleaning the floors. Now, some people will say, like we talked about this morning, well, I'm not exactly crawling on the floor. Like, my hands aren't on the floor. I'm not licking the floor. Like,
hopefully not.
Hopefully not. But cleaning the floor is important because as we walk across the floor, we are kicking up particulates that have settled. Those particulates potentially can give germs a ride, and ultimately, there's the 2 ways that we get sick: touch and respiratory. So that third dimension would be floors, and then the fourth dimension is actually cleaning the air itself. So the pandemic, I think, and these wildfires have taught us that cleaning the air is also important. And so I think that with the swine flu and bird flu and all those things, we see the uptick of hand washing, and then it goes down. But it usually is like it levels off higher than it was before the thing. So it's kind of doing something like this. But I think indoor air quality is sort of the next frontier in cleaning, where acknowledging that indoor air is 2 to 5 times more polluted than outdoor air. And what can we do? I was interested at the Chicago Public Schools, the Healthy Green Schools and Colleges Summit last summer. They are monitoring air quality in their classroom, and they found that if the air quality got outside of acceptable norms, they would send somebody to vacuum and dust. And they said 80% of the time that brought the air quality back down. So it's no longer just HVAC, and in building engineers, cleaning people can make an impact on air quality also.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because indoor air quality is something that we've been pushing on the cleaning side. I work in the cleaning publications, and our company also has facility publications, and they've always argued that's more of a facilities thing. That's an HVAC issue, that we need to talk about filtration and whatnot. And certainly there's why can't I think of the word? Various technologies that you can put in your HVAC unit that help clean the air. But cleaning is a huge component to indoor air quality. Not only can dusting and vacuuming help clean the air, but we can, if we're conscious about if we're conscious about indoor air quality, we can also be aware of not contributing to poor indoor air quality with poor VOCs, with a fragrance is a fragrance until it becomes an odor. So we just have to be careful for some of that. So specifically from a cleaning component, what other ways can we help improve indoor air quality or not contribute to poor indoor air quality?
For sure, yeah. Sometimes the cleaning chemicals we use can introduce VOCs that will be respiratory irritants or contribute to the bad indoor air quality. And so there are certifying bodies that, in addition to Green Seal, UL Ecologo, EPA Safer Choice, these are all going to be probably demonstrably safer chemicals than the competing alternative traditional product. But there's also certifications for low or no VOCs. Mm-hmm. One of the ones that I like and recommend is called Clean Air Choice Cleaner certification, and it's run by the South Coast Air Quality Management District in Southern California, but it's for the whole country. I grew up in Southern California. I did spend some time in New Jersey when I was real little, and so I was introduced to the idea of snow day when I was in New Jersey. Like, it snowed so much that I don't have to go to school. It's like, wow.
It's a big thing in Wisconsin.
Yeah, so I remember my first snow day was like, it's magic. Like, I don't have to go to school, and there's a bunch of fresh new snow for me to play with. When I moved to California, we didn't have snow days, but in the 80s and the 70s, when I was a kid, we had smog days. The smog was so bad, they didn't want you to go to school because, like, you go outside and run around and you get, like, this burning sensation in your...
Not as fun as snow.
Not as fun as snow. But this agency was put in charge of cleaning out the Southern California air, and that's the South Coast Air Quality Management District. And so they've, in addition to doing things with trucks and buildings, they also do things with consumer products like paints and cleaning products. And so they test these cleaning products by... They'll take a chamber of air, test the air quality, then they will spritz some chemical in there, test the air quality, and it has to be in a certain limit so that way you're more likely not to get respiratory irritant or be bothered by the VOCs. So I think your cleaning chemicals, entryway matting is like a great way to make sure the particulates stay outside. Vacuuming with HEPA filters or even just the regular filters that would be on a CRI, a certified vacuum cleaner, trap seals in floor drains, portable air purifiers, because as you mentioned, all these building engineers running HVAC, they've got these tight building envelopes that are very energy efficient. But once a particulate's in there, it's like bouncing around till you pick it up. They don't want to increase the air changes because that's going to mess with their energy efficiency. Yeah. So these air purifiers can help, and all these cleaning aspects that you can introduce can clean the air before it gets to the HVAC system, which will help extend the life of the MERV 13 filter and also keep it so that you're not having to do max air exchange and drive your energy use up.
Yeah, that's a lot of information. So those of you who don't know, the equipment, I'll just summarize a little bit. With some of the equipment, we mentioned emittance of equipment, and CRI is an acronym. He mentioned it's Carpet and Rug Institute. They actually have they're a third-party certifier of equipment, and they test the emittance that comes out, especially of vacuums, and making sure that that's not too harsh for the environment. There are certifications of various levels for that. So, and the MERV rating, that's not an acronym, that's just a thing. I was trying to keep track of all the acronyms you were saying so I can clarify. Sometimes it becomes an alphabet soup when we have conversations with experts in the industry. So I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page. But that is a lot of great information about indoor air quality. But adding to that a little bit is your point you mentioned earlier on floor care and how that helps. It's making sure we take proper care of our floors. I've had arguments. I've been doing this now for 20 years in the magazines, and I've had arguments with people who really say they're passionate that floors do not spread infections and bacteria and whatnot. Then I introduce them to a small child and at a school, puts their backpack on their floor, then picks it up and puts it on their desktop. How many women do the same thing with their purses? It transfers particulates. And your point too of just stepping will push things up into the air. HVAC units are running. Now it's not just pushing it up into the air and dropping back down. It's pushing up and being recirculated into the HVAC unit and into us. So how can cleaning people really try to make sure that doesn't happen? We can't be maintaining floors every minute. So what recommendations might you have?
From a hard floor care perspective, I would encourage you to go with an auto scrubbers or micro scrubbers instead of mops. So instead of just transferring the particulates, on the floor.
Even microfiber.
Well, and so microfiber mops better than cotton mops.
Sure.
Yeah, so
Okay.
Good point. Yeah, so if you got a microfiber mop, that's going to be better than a cotton mop to trap and pull that up. And then the auto scrubbers, micro scrubbers. So I think from a hard floor care perspective, doing that. If you're burnishing, having active vacuum dust capture on your burnishers, so as you're making that dust, you're picking that up. From a carpet care perspective, we recommend vacuuming, but then also cleaning with encapsulating technology. So that way, the analogy that I vibe with for encapsulating is like an M&M has chocolate in the middle, maybe peanut if you're a peanut M&M person, and then it's got the candy shell. Think of encapsulating carpet care as the candy shell, but instead of chocolate or peanuts, it encapsulates the dirt or the particulates that's in the carpet. It then dries clear, and the next time you vacuum, everything gets picked up, so you have no residue that get left behind. So those would be some of the things that I'd recommend for floor care.
Yeah, and with encapsulation, it also helps with odors. Yes. Or so I'm told.
Yes, yeah, it helps with odors. Many of them have some odor counteracts, and many of them also help with extending the life of the carpet, because what we see a lot in the industry is there's a spot in the carpet, so it gets blasted with chemical, it goes away, and then it comes back like 2 weeks later in almost the same configuration. Has anybody seen that? Yeah. What's happening usually is that the carpet still has the chemical in there, and the chemical's still looking to clean. And so as people are walking across that old spot, it's actually cleaning the bottom of their shoes in the exact same area. And so what the encapsulation process helps to do is it makes sure that you don't leave behind chemical residue. And so a really good way to test to see if you've got too much chemical in your carpet is just clean with an extractor and water only. If you look in the recovery tank and it looks like shaving cream, and it's very foamy, you still got a bunch of chemical in your carpet.
soap, yeah.
So you can keep using that chemical in the carpet to clean until such time that you rinse clear. Or you can even put like some neutralizer, into your tank and just try and get your carpet back to pH 7 so that you don't brown out and your carpet needs to be replaced sooner than it should be.
Yeah, it certainly helps with replacement issues. Certainly, you mentioned matting also as a strong component. That's something I think a lot of people overlook. But a strong matting program doesn't necessarily start inside; it starts outside. And maybe explain to our attendees here what is a strong matting program? Why is it important? And how often should it be maintained? And how maintained?
Yeah, so typically on a matting program, well, first the importance of matting. Studies have shown that 80% of the material that ends up on the ground in a building has been tracked in from outside. And so if we can trap and remove the dirt and the moisture from people's shoes before it comes inside, now we don't have to introduce a cleaning process that we maybe didn't have to do if the stuff would be left outside. Typically, you want to have, depending on the climate, you might have something that would be like a 3-part matting system, where you'd have something that would be like a super scraper, get the big stuff off your feet, and then come into a little bit more intermediate, maybe a scraper wiper, and then by the time you get inside, more of a wiper. So think of it maybe like grits of sandpaper, where you get the rough stuff outside, the big particulates, and then as you come in, it's getting finer and finer particulates off your shoes. But typically having a 3-part would be max effectiveness, and having at least 10 feet of mat continuously in the direction of travel, because nobody comes into a commercial building like they do in our residence. Stop, wipe your feet, and then keep going. They just keep walking, and so you're looking for 3 or 4 footfalls for your total matting to try and get max effect. If you get a 30-foot mat, you can get close to 100% of the debris off people's feet, but sometimes that's not practical.
I feel like that is the biggest oversight in facilities, is they don't have enough mat. I am actually one of those people who stops and wipes my feet. Most of the time it's because I live in Wisconsin and it's wet. So I don't want to fall. But that is an oversight, that people just don't invest in that. And why do you think that is? Do most facilities rent mats? Are they hard to maintain? Are they difficult to manage? Why don't we see more of that?
I think there's a variety of reasons, but I think people just maybe don't even really think about it so much. They see it as something that doesn't even enter their mind. And if it does enter their mind, they get a rental service. And so it's a 3x5 mat. It's kind of floppy, wet noodle mat, not really as effective. And, I guess better than nothing, but not really effective. And so typically it's much more cost effective to purchase the mats. We've have some clients who we've shown them that for the price of a good matting system, it basically pays for itself in like 6 months, whereas the rental you're paying for continuously on and on and on. Sometimes then the concern is, well, now I have to clean and maintain it, but it is something that usually if you you get a vacuum, you incorporate that into your daily cleaning plans, and then periodically maybe extract it, but I think really getting that, having a good matting system, and then just adding a little bit of that preventative maintenance. I think, what's the saying? An ounce of prevention is worth more than a pound of cure.
Cure, yeah. Most definitely. And certainly if you own it, you can design it, benefit from it if you have that opportunity. So we're wrapping up here real quick, but does anyone have any questions for Keith? Any questions? No? You answered every question they could possibly have. and we should be good to go. So with that, I just want to thank you, Keith. It's always a pleasure talking to you. You're so knowledgeable about the industry, and we appreciate you sharing your expertise with us. If anyone has any questions, feel free to come up afterwards. So thank you so much.